What's up, everyone? My name is Dab Booster Kid, and I'm here with my friend.
CleverFox.
And today, we're going to be discussing the differences and maybe similarities, if we can find any, between domestic and imported. Now, I stand on the more domestic side: Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, GMC, all that good stuff. While my friend Clever here stands with Nissan, Honda, Toyota, and all that good stuff. Everybody loves those, and So basically, we're gonna be discussing that. So if you would like to go first, let's go ahead and get this started. Let me hear your opinions about domestic. I'm not editing this in any way, by the way. I'm not editing it. Whatever happens, happens.
All right.
About import.
All right. So on the import side, I support Team Honda, Team Nissan, Team Toyota, Team BMW, Team Ferrari, Team Lamborghini, etc. Most of the European or Japanese import vehicles. I'm more into the tuner side of the world. I prefer a built car over a bought car. I mean, I still do appreciate the craftsmanship of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, but I would much rather have, to be honest, a boosted Honda or a boosted Nissan. But to me, this is a long-going argument between import versus domestic. See, my friend here, he's more of a domestic guy, and I'm more of an import guy, and we're, practically brothers, we are. He has his likes about it, I have my likes about it. We both like built cars, no matter how it goes. We would like them stock, of course, but, I mean, you can't leave a car stock forever. I mean, you gotta waste money somehow. I mean, they say, money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys me more horsepower. More horsepower makes me happy. So whenever I get the chance to, get any money, throw it into the vehicle, I'm pretty sure that everyone has their own form of racing that they prefer. If it's drag racing, track racing, rally racing, I'm kind of an all-around guy. Like, if I had the money to have a drag car, a track car, and a rally car, and a drift car, I would. Oh, and have a daily. I would definitely, do that. And to separate the differences between us is, it's a long-going war of who has the biggest engine, or who has the biggest turbo, or, who has the biggest tires. It's not necessarily about that when it comes to, say drag racing, for instance. We're here to watch guys and girls who love their cars, who build their cars, and enjoy their cars, to go out on the drag strip and have fun. Not about it to be an argument on whose car is faster, because the numbers say it all. It's not about the brand label that's on the back. It's about a built car or a bought car, if it's what you prefer, going against, your opponent, so to say. But it's all in, it's a sport. It's all for fun. It's certain people have their likes, and I personally prefer, a 4-cylinder engine turbo. I like the, build, boost. I like the high revs. I like to be able to beat the shit out of my engines. I like to be able to, have, the ability to abuse the engine if I want to, but also have the, power behind that as well. Now, I'd like to hear what your side is.
Well, me personally, growing up with my whole family was a bunch of Chevy, GMC, and Ford freaks. And personally, what I found that works best for my family is Ford, But I'm not very picky. I mean, before I just went out and bought my 92 Ranger about a week ago, I went out looking for anything Chevy. I was looking for, I think it was 80 to 98 square body Chevys, anything from a C10 to a K2500 4x4. Just because I like the rumble of the 350 V8, because it has that real authentic American sound. But I found Ford tends to work a lot better, because I found that when it comes to parts and engine life, they tend to last just a little bit longer, in my personal opinion. But that's a whole other discussion for, another day. But my whole opinion on it is, I'm more of a torque kind of guy. Like JDM, Honda and all that good stuff. They're not made for power. They're not made for high speeds. They're made for handling. They are made for torque, because they have to have some takeoff, but they're not all about that. They have more of that balance between the steering and the brake horsepower. But me personally, I like some, if I shove it from like third to second gear and just push down, it'll just rip tire off for a good 50, 80, 100 feet and just go. And that's just how I was raised. I love, superchargers, centrifugals, and even turbos. But I'm going to have to argue with you on your point earlier, though, about you can't leave a car stock forever. That is not true. On a domestic, you can, depending on what it is. Personally, in my opinion, a 69 Dodge Charger RT, or even the Daytona 500, or even a 70 Challenger, for that fact, you could leave stock, and I would be absolutely happy with it. You don't have to add all the insane, boosts and all that to it. But yeah, I've always been on the domestic side, American raised, Southern raised. And that's what I grew up with. I grew up, backwoods beaten when it comes to, like, trucks. I came out, my parents grew up street racing. My dad, I know at one point he had a Jetta. My mom had a V12, was it a Cougar or Jaguar? I don't remember which one it was. And that Jetta, that 2.0 stock would just tear into that Cougar. But the problem is it was a big body anyway. It's a heavy car. So, what do you expect? 3,000-pound Jetta versus like 7,000-pound Jaguar. Yeah, obviously the Jetta's going to win, even though the Cougar had more displacement, more horsepower. But that's the beautiful thing the difference between domestic and import. It's all about the ratios. And people love to argue that because apparently Hondas and stuff don't have that much horsepower. Oh my god. Well, that's not the point. Honda and all that's not made for horsepower. It's all about handling and torque. You gotta have all that or you're not doing anything. Like Mustangs, for example. I'll have to argue with that on, domestic. Simply because Mustangs do have a lot of oversteer and a lot of brake horsepower. But that's how Mustangs work. That was the American way since 1964 and halfway through 64 when they first came out with them. Sorry about that. And then Hondas, you get on the gas and you can just hear that top end power go to work 5, 6, maybe even 7 grand. And you can bang on that all day long. And I'll have to agree that, when it comes to banging on an engine, a Honda's more suitable simply because it has a top end power, so it has to be built to last. Now, domestic has the bottom end power, which gives it all the torque that it needs. Only problem is at some point all that bottom end power is eventually just going to give out and just go, and that's the end of the story. Whereas a Honda, I've seen Hondas run 235, 250, even 300,000 miles, and people would just banging on them every day. I mean, even a daily driver around where I live at, people were just banging on Hondas every day. And they don't give out, but I watched a guy, I think, it's like a what was that? Like an 84, I think, Mustang. He left his driveway and tore into it and just shattered the bottom block because he stood on the rev. As soon as he dumped clutch, and as soon as he did, he shoved obviously he shoved the gas pedal to the floor and he banged it in first gear. Got the second, did the same thing, and he overloaded the bottom end. But either way it goes, I love domestic. I love that nice American authenticity, that nice sound, that low grumble Ford has, or that uneven timing that Chevy has, because God knows that timing is just horrendous, because the spark plugs start in the middle and just work front to back, and it's like, Or even Chrysler big blocks, those sound great straight headed, but it's an ongoing argument about who's better and who does this and who does that. But to me, it's a fun argument, but there's no point getting mad about it. Because in all honesty, it's just fun. Yeah, there's some bragging rights with it. There's no reason to get into a fist fight about it. Like, oh, my JDM Honda K20 beat your 84 fastback or whatever. And there's no point to be mean about it. There's no point about getting mad about it. It's like, okay, you lost, take it back to the shop, try again. But it's just been going on for so long, and I kind of find it funny and ridiculous, but that's what we're here to talk about today. And it's all in good fun. We all have our opinions, we all have our favorites and our dislikes and all that. So, yeah. So, what do you think about imports, Clever?
Well, I actually have a few comments about what you were saying, and see how he's saying it's all about good fun. This is the perfect thing, is we're having a good, simple conversation. We're not insulting each other's, likes. Everyone's entitled to their opinions and their rights. And now we're going to get to the fun part where the arguing starts with most majority of car people is racing. Racing. So there's a few boundaries that you cannot cross on the JDM side of the family that I myself am actually a fan of. One of those is V8 swaps. A lot of people don't like American engines in a Japanese rear-wheel drive sports car. The reason why I say rear-wheel drive because you don't need all that torque in a front-wheel drive car. I know it's not about what you need, or it's more about what you want, but it would honestly be not a very smart decision. 240SXs, for instance, very popular to throw an LS3 in it or an LS1 in. I've even seen some people do the LS9 swap somehow.
I've actually seen people swap it with 302. Like I think it was about 5 to 6 months ago on Craigslist around here. Dude was building a drift car. It was the hatchback 240, and he actually went out and swapped the engine mounts and had a 4-barrel carbureted 302 ready to go down in it for the project. And that just blew my mind. It's like there's no reason to drop all that in, because everybody thinks when you go to these competitions or whatever, you need a V8 to put the horsepower out, which is not true. I watched back in 2010, I think it was. It was Formula Drift Racing, and it was Falcon's Mustang, I believe, versus Rockstar Scion TC. The Scion TC was the only car there that actually still ran a 4-cylinder engine, and it kept right up with that Mustang. Sadly enough, he got second place, but it just goes to show you don't need all that power in like JDM. So I gotta agree with you there on that one. I understand why people get mad, you know.
Yes, I completely agree with you. The whole statement, there's no replacement for displacement, is quite a silly term in my eyes. As the majority of people who say that are running turboed or supercharged engines, so therefore the boosted lifestyle is the way to go if you really want a lot of high horsepower figures. Not saying that a naturally aspirated engine can't, but there are some engines that just can't put down as much power naturally aspirated, such as the whole argument of which is more powerful. I can tell you this right now: a 3-cylinder. This is going to be hard to believe that a 3-cylinder is capable of 1,000 horsepower. If you do pistons rods, a bigger block, of course, and forced induction, it can easily do that. Well, I won't say easy to be on its tippy toes on that one. A 4-cylinder can easily. I've seen it done. I've seen it on drag strips before. You don't see it very often though, just because of expense. Is they can easily, push 1,000 horsepower. A lot of tuners with the Honda side of the world aren't pushing 1,000 horsepower. You don't see too many Hondas with 1,000 horsepower. Your reasoning is because the driver knows that this car spins with 300 horsepower. This car spins with 400 horsepower. This car spins with 800 horsepower. What happens if I throw 1,000 into it? It's going to spin a lot. Because what happens is, the reason why a front-wheel drive car spins so much is when you accelerate, all the weight moves to the rear of the car. Since it's not driven by the rear wheels, it's not going to aid in grip. It's just going to be pulling the front wheels, more so off the ground. Not literally off the ground, but, off the tarmac, so it's going to lose a little bit of its grip. That's why they spin. That's why you see a lot of guys who drag race, who put their batteries in the front of the car. They put these big fat bumpers in the front of the car just to help put a little bit of weight on the front end. I know the engine's sitting over the wheels, but it doesn't necessarily help. And those cars they have a few thousand horsepower figure Hondas that, you can run 200 mile per hour through the quarter miles. But you really honestly don't need that. If you go and watch lots of racing videos of Hondas beating, Vipers or GTRs or Corvettes, is because the reason why these cars beat these built on both sides vehicles is because they're tin cans. They don't weigh anything. And in racing, power to weight ratio is the most important thing. Cars like the AE86, it doesn't need a lot of horsepower. I would say if I wanted to build a racing 86, I would run some ITBs, as I'm about that all motor life in that car. Maybe 350 horsepower, maybe 400 horsepower at the most. I honestly wanted to run something like that because it's going to go quick. It's going to be like a rocket, like a Honda, because it doesn't weigh anything. And I know my friend Casey. He has a GSR hatch, and it's a EF hatchback, and it literally only weighs 1,100 pounds. That car literally weighs nothing. You can pick it. 4 people can literally pick that car up and move it aside. I can pick the rear up by myself, just the front end. And you just don't want to drop it, of course, but. Now coming on to the other aspects we were talking about, like V8 swaps and Hondas and etc. More on the performance side. I mean, they're all performance vehicles, but more on the performance side, like it's Ferrari and supercars territory, is for track racing. I see lots of people don't really run supercars in the track, anymore because they're too scared of losing what they paid for. But I rather blow my car up on a track than leave it in the garage. Myself personally, I see too many of these guys get these nice cars, and they throw them on trailers to go to car shows. But I understand. I understand it to a certain limit. That's just not my personal style. Me, I want to be the cool guy who's driving his, F12 Berlinetta down to the racetrack or down to the car show, or driving my '69, Nova SS, which is one of my favorite muscle cars. I mean, I see lots of people with these old classic cars, or Miatas, which is kind of funny to me. Like, what's going to hurt a Miata? Nothing.
Speed bump.
Unless you slam it. Yeah, unless you slam it. And performance cars like Lamborghinis, Ferraris are the dreadful, in my opinion, the dreadful Bugatti, just because of its sheer ease of going so fast with zero effort. And it's a good vehicle because it takes no driver, no really driver talent to drive a vehicle. Most people think that's silly. Like, lots of people hating on automatic transmissions and whatnot because it's not a driver's car anymore. But if you really look at it, a good vehicle is a vehicle that does most of the work for you. As bad as that sounds, because I have saved the manuals, I'm no traction control, I'm barely AC unless it's summer. It's just a car that does most of the work for you is an easier car to drive. That's on the track even. I wouldn't say during on a daily basis. I myself would rather be rocking some gutted, home built machine of just crap, just a scrap mobile, just something I can beat on that I don't have to worry about. And I'm pretty sure that if me and my friend here were to meet on the street or something on a race, I don't condone street racing, of course, but if we were to meet on the street, I would say empty street and there's a green light and we're just waiting for that green light. And he's in a Mustang. Built bottom in, some cams in there. I can hear that cam load a little bit. I know he's got something under there. I'm in a, Evo, just cams and just a little bit bigger of a turbo. And that's going to be, doesn't matter who wins the race though. What's going to be the fun part? We're going to be just waiting we're going to be so happy to see green. It's going to be the happiest green experience in our entire lives, just so we can rip on our cars. Probably both of our windows rolled down. So if he's ahead, I can hear that V8, or if I'm ahead, he can hear that four-cylinder with that anti-lag. Just sound like we're having a freaking shootout in the street. That's the side of performance and fun that I have, with vehicles. But I like it all, but just everyone has their preferences, because I'm a car enthusiast. I like it all. I like bikes, too. What do you got to say?
What do I got to say? First off, if I have something built, you're not going to know about it, because I'm the kind of guy, I'll throw cats and mufflers back on it just so you can't hear it. Because that's just how I am. I love bringing out the unexpected. Before I just went out and bought my Ranger, I know you know this because we've been friends for a while now. I had a 1999 Ford F-250 Super Duty Triton V10. And it smoked because the valves were burnt and stuck and just nasty and grimy. And the bottom end was rattling all that hell. The rods were bad. But I found it funny because I bring the quirkiest vehicles. But I used to drag race it out on the street. I guarantee a good 7 Hondas that just run around. But the problem is once I beat a couple of them, their friends don't want to do anything anymore because everybody in these cliques around where I live is just so tight. It's like, oh hey, you see this guy, don't do anything. And it made me sad, but it was all in good fun. It was amazing, and people don't expect it. That's what I love to do. But that's where I'm getting to the point of I'd throw cats and mufflers back on it because if I show up in that that 86 Fox body or that notchback, you know what I'm saying? You're not gonna know. It's just gonna look like crap. I'm a primary gray, maybe get a metallic black door on it. And the crappiest whited out cow hood on it, and I'm just gonna go ham. You're gonna pull up in that Evo, and I know you. I know better than this. I know you're gonna have something underneath of it, just because you can't help yourself. You can't help yourself, and I just know. And the funny thing is I don't even think I'd have a V8 in it, and I wouldn't even have a 302. Personally, I'd throw either a 2.3 or a 3.0 back in it, and throw that 5-speed train with a 9-inch rear end, and just go with it. And anyway, but yeah, you would never know. So that's where I'm going with that point. But the other point that we kind of got off topic with earlier was the V8 swaps and whatnot in the imports. People don't realize you don't need all that horsepower in these little Hondas. Like a stock Honda S2000 weighs probably a good 3,000 pounds max, something like that. Simply because it's made with light materials where there is metal, and where there's not metal, it's plastic. But it's all styled out so there's a nice even flow over the car. Plus, most of them are either pop top or rag top, so there's no weight there anyway. In the way that window's curved, you're gonna have that drop top down, and it's just gonna go right over the car. But by that point, you got that. Maybe you swapped it out with an LS1 or even an LS3. You got 600, 700, 800 horsepower with a supercharger. Where are you gonna go with it, guys? Like, you can't gut this car. You're gonna have to throw like 1,000 pounds in the trunk just to hold the tires down, because there's nothing there. Naturally, a Honda S2000 sits at a stance. If you look at it, it sits about, I'm going to say, like 3 in the front, like 3 1/4, 3 1/2 in the back. If you look at that S2000, the way Honda designed it, it has that natural up to it in the rear end. And that's because that VTEC they got in there, that little VTEC they got stuffed in it, has all the horsepower you need. You don't need anything bigger. You could build from there and be fine with it. It's kind of like taking an 87 hatchback RX-7, taking that 3-rotor engine out, scrapping it, and dropping, I don't know, let's just say a 460 big block. Why? You can go to the drag strip with it all you want. You're not going to go anywhere. I've watched rotors completely outdo any muscle car. I mean, I may be a domestic guy, but I'm all for that 3-rotor life. I love those rotors, especially like in a 98 RX-7. And it makes me so angry when people go, well, it doesn't have enough horsepower. Well, it doesn't need the horsepower. It doesn't need it. It's too light. You don't understand. These cars are not very heavy, unlike American cars. You go and get a Chrysler Imperial or Lincoln Imperial? I can't remember. My brain's dead right now. It's 4:19 in the morning. But you get one of those, and of course you're going to need that 460 big block with that 4-speed transmission. Why? Because that car probably weighs a good 6,000 pounds without the seats in it. And it needs that horsepower. But you don't need that horsepower in anything small like that. I love watching these guys just go out here with these 240 SXs. Slamming them on the ground to the point you can't, like where you camper so much you can't slide a credit card through. But then you go ahead and shove, a 302 or even a 289 small block under the hood and just say, alright, it's awesome. Well, I love watching it because I've seen so many of them blow rear ends and shocks on the suspension, and even the rear towers. I've watched people shatter the rear towers simply because the car itself can't handle the torque and it doesn't need it. Domestic is made for torque and oversteer, whereas imported is made for steering and, I don't want to say top speed, but it doesn't, the whole point is it doesn't need that. It's not designed for that. It's made to handle curves and have enough horsepower to get you where you need to go without killing you. I mean, you're like, on your point way earlier in this video, you don't need more than maybe 350, 400 horsepower cranking out of that anywhere from a D16 to that B20 VTEC. You don't need it. Simply because all your weight's already in the front. You already have no weight too. You got a Honda with the engine out. That car probably weighs a good 400 or 500 pounds. I mean, that's as much as a lawnmower weighs. A Cub Cadet, a small Cub Cadet weighs, you know what I'm saying? And you don't need it. And it just aggravates me. And the other thing that aggravates me, especially when it comes to domestic, sweet lord, is when people take Fords and swap out the engines or the transmissions for Chevy. there's a guy I know. If anybody here watches street racing and you watch Street Outlaws, if you watch, it was on first or second season, I don't remember, and I don't remember what the guy's name was, but he had an '80s model, hatch Mustang. I don't know what size engine he had in it because I didn't care for it. All I know is he had a Chevrolet swap engine in it, and I never understood why. The funny thing was, is that car I don't think ever really won a single race. Why? Because it's not made for that car. People don't realize this. Fords actually burn 100 degrees hotter than Chevrolet engines. Chevy runs cool, which is, me, Clever here had an argument the other day about oils. People don't think oil matters. Well, it does. Valvoline, Halvoline, and Castrol, no matter what the weight is, if you compare that to Mobil 1, Lucas, and Pennzoil, are thinner because Chevy doesn't need all the weight. Chevy burns 100 degrees less than Ford. Therefore, the crank doesn't have to turn as hard to produce horsepower. So, when you take that Chevy and put it in where you take that 350 and put it where that 351 or even that 302 used to sit, or even Ford's version of the 350, it's not going to run right. It doesn't burn as high, and it can't turn the tranny as hard because it can't spin the flywheel. Why? Because it doesn't burn as hard. The harder the engine burns, especially like if you put ALS on a car, that turns out it's kind of like ALS with a turbo. The harder it burns, the faster it turns that crank. The harder the ALS, and you get that engine revved up, the harder it's going to spin that turbo. And it's stupid. You don't need to do that. In Chevrolet, I understand swapping Ford engines into Chevy for more horsepower, but at the same time, you're going to overload, let's say a 700 Power Glide, maybe? 700 Turbo, whatever it is. I don't much care for that. But it's not going to work the same. You can't just go around swapping parts like it's nothing. I mean, import maybe, because I've watched people take Nissans and Toyotas and swap them out. I actually watched a guy on, I think it was 1320 video, if I'm not mistaken. I know you've seen this. Took an 80s model Mustang and swapped it with a 4G63 Mitsubishi. Well, the reason that works, and that's okay, that one time, is simply for the fact that it may be a smaller engine. Is it a V6 or V8? I'm pretty sure it's a V8, right?
That's in Mustang?
Yeah, the 4G63, isn't that a V8?
No, it's a four-cylinder.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a four-cylinder turbo.
Is it? I'm sorry, I've yet to learn a lot about it. I'm going to get my studies up on it a little bit, though. I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. I'm not afraid to ask questions, but that's okay, because those engines, especially if you turn out that 4G63 with the turbos he had strapped to it, they'll crank out about 12 grand, and they'll peg all that, but at the same time, Nissan's not all top-end power either. Or that Mitsubishi, sorry. Anyway, it's not all top-end power. It has that nice balance, but it also has those revs. So, I mean, that's fine. If you do an engine right, that's fine, but you can't just go around taking a 350 small block and shoving it where, say, a 400 big block was. You can't just go around taking that 327 and putting it where a 289 was. It's not going to work the same, people, and it just really aggravates me. Because engine swaps, domestic or imported, depending on what it is, just don't work. And there's a lot of reasons behind it that people just can't comprehend. And it just aggravates me so bad. It's like, yeah, it'll work just fine, and I love watching it when they get it just on the dyno and just blow the bottom end apart because it can't handle it. It's either not enough weight or it's too much. It's just stupid. But I want to hear what you had to say about all these engine swaps and stuff. Let me hear what you think. Engine swaps, transmission swaps, all that good stuff. I want to know what you think about it because it just infuriates me sometimes.
Well, I mean, there's on Car Throttle, they posted a video like insane engine swaps, and then one of those they had an engine that people don't really talk about. I'm talking about the LS motors, and this is an LS motor I'm talking about, and they put an LS2 and an S2000. And I'm thinking to myself, and supercharged it. Yeah, of course, you had to cut a hole in the hood.
Exactly.
But it's like,
I was about to say, I remember that because he had to cut the hole in the hood.
Yeah, it's like the car weighs 2,800 pounds. That's gonna destroy axles. It's gonna, people don't take in the part that when you add power to a vehicle that doesn't have power, it really, really takes a toll. You can't just put an engine in a car and that's it. You have to worry about brakes because I say brakes are the best performance, thing that you can add to a vehicle first if you're going to build something. But you got to do brakes, you got to do axles, you got to do hubs, you got to do all this, pretty much all the suspension, lower controller arms, upper controller arms. You got to, you could definitely, if you can fit the engine there, you're going to have to cut some stuff out of the engine bay. You're going to have to rework the dashboard to fit an engine like that. You're going to have to probably find some sort of crazy guru, because there's always those car gurus out there that just know how to do those engine swaps, to fit big engines and small cars. Now, I mean, of course, there's going to be a fantastic benefit, but after that, when you look at the receipt, it says $120,000 is how much money you put into a car that's just a two-door convertible. You're kind of like, I could have bought a Ferrari, I could have bought a GTR, I could have bought that, but I'm more satisfied because I can drive this car around and say, I made this. This is a imagery of what I have for a vehicle, which is the most important aspect of building a vehicle in my eyes. Now, another thing that comes in talking about engine swaps, there are engine swaps that are really, really good engine swaps. Really, really good engine swaps. Take a look at Hondas. They can put a vast, people don't understand this, but you can put a vast amount of engines in them. What do most Honda guys do? They do your K swaps. They do the rare H swaps. They do the B swaps. They don't sit there and they don't want to get a Nissan Maxima engine. They don't want to get SR20s. They don't want to get any of that stuff. They stay with Honda engines. They're probably the most brand loyal, car people out there. And there's a reason why. Is because the people who built, Honda themselves, they built these cars for economy. They were built for economy. So let's make a little bit of a sportier version of our economy cars. And let's go out with crazy variable valve timing. And these cars are light. These cars are nimble. A lot of people say that they're not good on track, but these cars will destroy on the track. These little cars will destroy on the track. These cars are mean cars. Race car drivers, Formula One drivers, even say the Honda Civic is the best car platform ever created. And it's a front-wheel drive car, and most car enthusiasts, I won't say enthusiasts, most car people hate on front-wheel drive. It's useless, it's rubbish, it's this, it's that, it's this, that's understeer, and it's this. But to be honest, a car that has understeer can go around a track faster than a car that has oversteer because sideways is slow. But
so stylish.
Yeah. It's sad that it's been lost. I mean, I love going sideways.
Get your Tanner Faust on with it.
Yeah, I love going sideways and tire smoke and all that. I mean, front-wheel drive does have its fun. I mean, I always tell people, don't really bang on it until you really get into, like, a front-wheel drive car that's, has some power in it. And you can really see how fun it is, especially when you say, a K24 Honda Civic that's boosted, and when you floor it, the steering wheel is shaking left to right. Because that limited slip differential at the front is like, hey, I'm locking these wheels up. They're both going to roll at the same exact time. And it's just sitting there spinning the tires, and you're holding on to the steering wheel for dear life. But that's fun, because it's what makes a car fun. I say the more dramatic the car is, the funner it is. There's a certain point where it's too much drama.
Exactly.
Now, I'm going to get off this subject, and I'm going to go over to another dreadful subject that I've gotten on with two of them so far. It's not dreadful for me. It's dreadful for a lot of car guys. I talked about it earlier, but it's the GTR. It's Godzilla, they call it. Godzilla, the almighty powerful GTR.
I don't know many people that call it Godzilla, to be honest with you, but okay.
I don't understand why they do either, but that's just what they call it. It's four-wheel drive. It sits up kind of high. It's a square car. I say that with just the way the frame is set up for the vehicle. It's more of a squared out car. It handles good, which it's very, very powerful. That engine is very reliable. It's very powerful. Some even say, for it almost being a supercar, sort of to say, it's probably the most reliable supercar, if you want to call it that, out there. It beats Ferraris, it beats some Lamborghinis, it beats Corvettes, it beats Camaros, it beats Mustangs, it even beats itself. It's the crazy fact about that car is, for it to be as expensive as it is, it has a high factor of being modified. A lot of people like to modify the turbo system, or Another thing they want to get rid of is the intake and put a different intake on it. And a lot of people would love to straight pipe that car. Honestly, it sounds fantastic about the straight pipe
I
vehicle
don't
like
think I've ever
that.
heard of straight pipe. I've only seen it with the stock rail-graded dual exhaust.
Yeah, they have the straight pipe, and that also sounds aggressive as hell.
I'm gonna have to find
And
out. Honestly.
a lot of people like to they like to do the intake because you can't hear the turbos on its stock. It's a fun car though. Now for it to be dual, clutch, paddle shift, and it seemed like it'd be kind of boring not being able to change gears. But to be honest, that car would only have around 500, 600 horsepower, I think it's like 580 around that area. That's a scary ass car because that car it's a rocket ship. It accelerates really fast. And if it was a manual with clutch, I'd probably be bouncing the rev limiter through first and second, just because there's no wheel spin. That's the point. It's mind boggles me. I'm prepared for wheel spin, but there is none.
I don't think they're paddle shift, aren't they?
Yeah, they're paddle shift. That's the thing. If they were like a 6-speed manual or 7-speed manual, it would be kind of tricky because it accelerates very fast.
Now, see, I have a problem with the GTRs. My problem is GTRs. Yeah, they're fun and they're customizable. My only problem is they already come stock with so much horsepower. Yeah, you can modify it all you want, but the thing is I'm a guy. I'll go out and find maybe say an '84 F-250 sitting in a field somewhere. I'll go out, I'll drag what's left of it out, and I'll completely rebuild it from the ground up simply because I like to go out and make my own, make it my own way. I'm not saying you can't do that with a GTR, but it's every time I see a GTR, it's almost always the same thing. The turbos are either bigger or they're cranked up higher on the boost, or it's always the same thing for me. That's my issue with it. It's something you can just go to a garage, throw on a computer, modify the ECM, get under the hood a little bit, to maybe readjust a few things or just switch a turbo out, and that's about the end of the story. I'm not saying they're a great car. I mean, they're pretty well balanced. The power ratios are pretty good. I've seen the takeoffs; they're pretty good. It handles well. It does track straight, and curve well. But it's not. I don't know. I don't personally think you don't have to put any brains or soul into it. It's something you just go, hey, I want this done. That's the end of the story. That's my only problem with GTR. That's my problem with a lot of supercars. Like, you can go out, any schmuck can go out, a couple $100,000, go out and buy yourself a Lamborghini. Let's say 2005, 2006 Gallardo Spider, and you can go out and you can pay somebody to just go in, switch turbos, and upgrade your ECM, and that's the end of the story. You can crank out 1,000 horsepower to twin turbos out of a Lamborghini. I don't find any fun in that. I like the journey it takes to get to the point. I like the satisfaction of watching it come together like my Ford Ranger. My Ford Ranger right now, it runs and drives on its own. I just gave it an oil change. I just did the spark plugs in it. Now, mind you, this is a 92 Ranger, 5-speed, 4-speed with overdrive, whichever one you want to call it, 3.0, fuel injected, 6-foot bed, regular size cab. Not much of a truck, but it's my truck, and I have to fix it to make it mine. I've already gone through. I've done the usual thing. I went out and bought my new shifter now, like every teenager does. Like, oh my god, I gotta get it. I went to Walmart and I bought cheap neons to stick up, up on the roof, just because I like to set the mood when I'm driving at night. They're not really useful for anything. They're just aesthetic. But all these little things is what I like to do. Like, next thing I had to do is go out. This is bad for Rangers. I had to go out and buy the rear cab mount rubber bushings. If you go out and look at my truck, it has a slight sag to it. It looks like the frame maybe broke or sagging, but the frame, I got up underneath of it. Actually, I got up underneath of it a couple of days ago, and I got up underneath it yesterday to take the exhaust off. I had to replace the exhaust. It's typical Ford, the muffler's rotted off. But I looked at it in the frame. There's minimal rust for being up north with all the rain and the snow and the sand and all that. It has minimal rust. This truck is actually in pretty immaculate condition. All the original body panels are there. It has its problems, like any vehicle does, but it's mine. I'm gonna enjoy building it. I'm gonna enjoy putting her back to where she needs to be, and I honestly plan on keeping it for a while. I could go out tomorrow and blow a transmission out of it, and I'll go buy a brand new transmission to stick back in it, simply because I love working on it. I love getting my hands dirty and being one-on-one with it. I don't have to go out and have somebody come in with this giant computer to run all the codes and redo the ECM and all that. I mean, it's easy, but it's fun. I just enjoy the journey and the satisfaction of knowing I got it to where it is today. And that's where the Nissan GTR kind of stops with me. I personally think they're overrated. I always have. But that's simply because there's really no joy from beginning to end on the journey. You can have that car built, for about 50, 60 grand in, I want to say 2 weeks. There's no fun in that. There's no soul into it. There's no hard work or dedication to it. And that's why, even right now, I'm on a budget. I was looking at, what was it? And it was a 98 Chevy 2500. The body straight, the frame solid, the cab corners were still there, and the interior was all there. It needed an engine, and it needed a transmission. And I wanted to go out and spend $350 on the body. An engine I found for it, which is a 350 throttle body, would have fit right in. Would have cost me $400, and I wanted to go out and buy a $700 transmission to stick back in it, simply because I enjoy it. And like I said, that's just where all these supercars like Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, even Audi, Bugatti, the Nissan GTR, that's where it all stops with me. There's no joy. Any schmuck can go out, buy one of these, throw it in a garage for 2 weeks, and say, alright, done. And it just kills me. It's like, there's no, where did all the fun go in actually building these cars? That's why, even with these Hondas that run around here, they may be cambered all the way out to the ground. You can't slide a credit card to the fenders, even though it's on stock Steelies, and it has a fart can on it with an intake. I know that guy, even though I hate them because they're just a nuisance to me, but I know that guy went out, took the time to buy the parts, even just from AutoZone. He didn't have to order them online. He went out and bought a DC exhaust and, lower arms on the rear end for the suspension, all from AutoZone, Advanced Auto, all that good stuff. And he took it back to his house, and he went into his garage. He found all these little floor jacks, or he found, a professional, like an actual jack, and he put it up in his driveway, put blocks behind the tires, and all that, and he installed these parts himself. As much as I hate him because they're a nuisance, I know that guy took the time and his money and the time out of his life to put that car together. Even though they apparently can't figure out where the hell to put a heat shield or an intake.
We're going to have to get into that, whole heat shield talk. Another
let me see how long we've been recording for. Let's see here, ladies and gentlemen. We've been recording for 42 minutes and 40 seconds. I honestly think it's about time to end this conversation. I think I honestly think I just stopped recording. Nope, there it goes. It's just a little bit laggy. That's all the time we have for today. I will be doing more videos. You might chop
this into segments.
Right. No, I'm not going to chop in this segment. Well, I might have to. I don't know. But from now on,
part 2.
I'm gonna be having more of these discussions. If you guys want, I'm gonna, whether you want them or not, I'm gonna have these discussions. I find it fun. I think people at home will enjoy this. It's a god honest, down to earth kind of thing. It's not scripted. We didn't plan on this. We just said, hey, I made this up. I just downloaded the software and all that, and said, hey, let's do a video. Clever here suggested domestic versus import differences, similarities, all that, and I said, all right, that's fine. So. None of this is scripted. It's just heart to heart. It's open, and it's all there out in the open for us now. And it was a good time. But I'm gonna have to end the video here. My friend Clever here. If you ever, want to talk to him, just let me know. Let me know, in the comments section and whatnot. Let me know what you guys think. And as I said earlier in the video, very beginning, I'm That Boosted Kid. And remember, everybody, stay boosted.